Engineering and Operations Committee and a special meeting of the Board of Directors. So with that, if we can have a determination of a form.
The general manager away, I will go ahead and do the roll call. Sorry about that. Director Deere.
Here.
Director Williams.
Here.
Director Alvarez.
Here.
Director Gray.
Here.
Director Houston. Director Alvarez, we have a quorum.
All right. So the next item is public comments. There isn't anybody in the audience that has any comments that you would like to direct to the board?
We haven't received any.
None. Do we have any comments in any of the participants? Yes, Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Chairman, we have not received any requests for public comment, though this meeting is being held both in person and virtually. If there's any member of the public that would like to make public comment, please indicate so now by raising your virtual hand. Mr. Chairman, I do not see any requests for public comment.
Okay, then we will move on to presentations. Do we have any presentations?
Mr. Chairman, we do not have any requests for, we do not have any presentations.
All right, so we will then move on to the action calendar. And the first item is the award of agreement management services and approved solicitation and assistant components for the solids handling improvement project. This item has been before us in one or other fashion many times, and coming back. I recently saw the presentation. A lot of the PowerPoint presentations, a repeat of one we have seen at least 4 times that I can recall, and probably more. So when you make the presentation, Mr. General Manager, maybe we can skip over the repetitiveness unless some of the other board members would like to see that. So I'll first ask the board, is the board interested in seeing some of the presentation that we have seen in the past?
We've seen it before, and you don't think we should see it again?
For me, I'm like, I have to go through it one more time, and I'm not learning anything new and trying to get out of here in a short period of time.
I agree.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, with that, we do have John Bennett here for the project presentation. I would note that obviously staff puts a lot of effort into these presentations. As he moves through these, I'll have John kind of stop and determine with the committee which slides we want to move forward with, but we can move through it briskly. But with that, I'll hand it over to John.
Thanks, EJ. Good afternoon, Director Alvarez, members of the committee. So today, we're presenting 2 action items. The first is recommending a contract award for construction management services, and the second is requesting approval to post invitations to quotation for pre-procurement items both on the solids handling system improvements project, which is CIP project number 10059. So this agenda item begins on packet page 5, but we'll be starting with the presentation, which begins on packet page 13. As you mentioned, Director Alvarez, the first few slides are the same overview you've seen a few times.
so John, just, the item before us today is to enter an agreement for construction management services. So maybe we can get to that point, which is the item you're asking to consider.
Okay, no problem. Would you like me to present the current project status or just jump straight to the action item?
Unless you heard what I had to say.
Okay. Okay. So if we start on packet page 20, the construction management scope of work. So the first action item on this staff report today is for the award of the contract for construction management services. Acquiring an external consultant for these services is standard practice at West Basin and a recommendation in the construction industry as a whole. A competent construction manager can oversee the daily construction tasks, develop and review contractors' plans, minimize risk of change orders, and ensure the construction is carried out safely and efficiently. So for this project, staff separated the scope of work into 4 tasks. The first of these is the constructability assessment. This task comprises 3 4-hour workshops to review both the 90% and 100% design submittals. These workshops will be targeted at finding potential constructability issues with the design, reviewing the construction schedule for errors, and going through the specifications to ensure that the required work is specified, the expectations of the contractor are outlined, and that the district is protected should issues occur during construction. The second task is for services. This mostly comprises setting up pre-construction meetings, establishing the document control system that will be used on the project, and developing the necessary quality assurance and control procedures to ensure the project progresses smoothly. Once the contractor has issued the notice to proceed, the CM team will provide all of the usual construction management services, inspecting daily work, conducting weekly meetings, reviewing submittals, RMIs, change orders, red lines, and various pieces of construction documentation that arise. And then when the project wraps up and the construction is completed, the CM team will stick around for another month or so to ensure that all project documentation is received and filed, to provide a report summarizing the construction phase, and to transmit all documents necessary for the operation and maintenance of the refurbished system. So the full scope of work document is provided as attachment B on this staff report, and that was what was provided to the contractors as part of the RFP. Next slide, please. So this slide goes through the solicitation process we underwent for the construction management services. On April 11th, staff posted the request for proposals in our online procurement system OpenGov. It was also advertised on our website and social media. In the 6 weeks prior to this posting, West Basin staff personally reached out to 35 companies via email, following up with pre-RFP meetings and site walks with many of them. 32 companies downloaded the RFP packet, and 7 companies started the application process. A pre-proposal presentation and site tour was held on April 24th, and it was attended by 19 people representing 11 separate consultants. On May 7th, we received only 2 proposals, which were reviewed by 4 West Basin staff members over the following week, according to the scoring schedule that you'll find in attachment C. All consultant references were contacted with no adverse comments or items of concern registered. Both respondents were invited to interviews the week of May 13th. These interviews were conducted with a panel of 5 people, so that's the 4 original staff members from West Basin and 1 external panelist from the Water Management District. The interviews consisted of a series of formal questions asked to both parties. They were scored out of 10, and this was then added to the proposal score for a total score out of 107 available points. The highest scoring candidate was AKM Consulting Engineers, who is being recommended on a best value basis with a total proposed cost of $688,168. The individual scoring can be viewed in detail in attachment C. I should note here that West Basin staff were concerned about only receiving 2 proposals after significant outreach efforts. Staff reached out to all of the organizations that we previously contacted and received feedback from 12 companies. The majority of responses stated that a lack of resources on their side was the issue, either for creating the proposal or for actually staffing the job. Some responses from newer contacts pointed to an unfamiliarity with West Basin's ways of working and operation, and so staff have set up meetings with all of those companies in the following weeks. One respondent actually stated that they were scared off by the level of outreach that we did, as they believe that reduced their chance of getting the contract. But all in all, we don't believe there was anything in particular the staff did incorrectly here. However, we are evaluating the responses for lessons we can learn in future RFPs. Next slide, please. This table shows the respondents, their proposed costs and hours and total scores. As you can see there on the far right column, the selection was incredibly tight. Both consultants presented an excellent team, were well qualified for the project. Both consultants know the ECL facility very well and are well aware of the challenges caused by construction on an active treatment facility. The evaluation panel wanted me to note that they believe both teams would have been well suited to this job and would have done an excellent job. But ultimately, the selection came down to cost, with AKM's lower cost and higher hours per dollar, giving them a slight points advantage. It should also be noted here that both proposals came in significantly under the engineer's estimate of $1.4 million. This estimate was based on a standard 10% of the estimated construction cost, and the low proposals reflect that the actual construction work itself is relatively simple, with both consultants recommending a team of only 1 full-time member with part-time support. The majority of the work on this project is effectively replacing mechanical systems like for like, with minimal civil work, no anticipated special inspections, and relatively simple electrical installations. Therefore, the proposed CM costs have come in at around half of the cost of a normal construction project of this size. Next slide, please.
Question, please.
Yes.
This AKM, are they the same people that have been around for some time, like in Arcadia? That area somewhere around in there?
I don't know where they're based. I believe
They're based out of Irvine in Orange County.
Irvine?
Yeah.
They have been around.
Yeah, they have.
So has Gutierrez.
Yeah.
AKM most recently did the construction
Something here.
management here for the cathodic protection project that we had. And Gutierrez is currently doing the construction management for the
These two.
marathon plant.
Okay. But these aren't strangers. All right. Thank you.
But they're not new.
No, I think, no.
Next slide, please. So that was the first action item on this agenda, the CM Services award. Before I move on to the second action item, are there any questions on the CM Services before the end?
Do you have any?
No, I'm-
questions?
no,
Rick,
that's it.
Deere, do you have any questions?
No.
Director Gray, do you have any questions? Director Gray, are you still with us? Okay, so on this particular one, thank you for reaching out, and you guys did meet with at least, I forget how many, 11 firms or whatever showed up at the meeting, and reached out to 35. It's surprising that only 2 submitted, but and there are 2 that are very familiar with us. So on this particular project, we want to hire a construction management company at this point. But this is a project that we have discussed multiple times, and it's still not, I'm still scratching my head as to 2 questions: absolute need at this time, and more importantly, funding for the overall project. So if we hire a CM now, we're committing additional funds when we have a challenging budget situation. What are the provisions if we hire a CM firm to then maybe just terminate them early on? Because apparently the reason for hiring them is you want them to do some
Constructability review.
structurability review.
So I don't know legally the terms of terminated contract, but yeah, the constructability review will occur over the next couple of months, but we're not intending to onboard the contractor until around November or December of this year. So there is a gap between the construction starting and the constructability review.
And I can address the agreement that we would strike with such companies. Typically, they're basically sign our regular professional services agreement, which states that we could technically stop at any point and not proceed with the project. If we choose to.
And so the language in our agreement, when it says you can terminate it for convenience, it would be for just cost incurred, is that actual cost incurred for that period of time?
Correct. Time and materials.
I haven't seen a breakdown of their proposal and so on. So I don't know how much front end loading is on this particular one in terms of attendance at meetings by more senior staff that fill up front, and then you don't see them as much once the project gets moving and the actual project manager kind of takes over. Is there a way that maybe we can minimize all of that, given that this may or may not be something we eventually see coming to fruition this year?
So I can answer that. So on the previous slide, or actually 2 slides back, actually page 20. Sorry, one more. There's 4 tasks there broken down. The consultants provided us cost per task. So the costs on their proposal are $30,000 for task 1, the constructability assessment, $27,000 for task 2, $624,000 for task 3, the construction, and $7,500 for the closeout.
And you can see on the slide over there, the timeframe for each of the tasks. So we are currently planning to conduct a constructively review, assessment in the June through August timeframe, then have them stop, basically put the services for the CM consultant on hold pretty much until November. So assuming the project would move forward and get it out, it would come back into play a few months later. And so for the first task, again, the estimate is around $30,000 out of the $700,000 total scope.
I'm sorry, did you say 30,000?
Correct.
Total contract value?
29,544.
Director, I think we hear your concern that the construction project has not yet been approved by the board. I think the constructability review is prudent, given that we have 100% sign before we put that package out on the street to ensure that any obvious change orders that the contractor might be able to exploit are addressed before we release the bid, should the board decide to move forward with that bid. And it sounds like we'll have minimal exposure with the $30,000 constructability review on the overall contract. Should we not receive the contract, this scope of work was just dissipated.
But still, we basically be spending $30,000 in the next 4 months.
That's correct. And I think I've had a chance to sit down with staff and get at least a preliminary understanding of the project and the considerations that have been looked at to date. I tend to agree with the direction that they've headed. I know we still have some questions that need to be answered. But I think that would be money that would be well spent and time well spent, assuming they're going to move forward with the project. I understand it's not a foregone conclusion just yet, but in my opinion, it's worth spending that money today so that we don't lose the time, because this is a critical issue that we need to address. And if we lose the time, then we're losing potential, we're exposing ourselves to potential for more downtime, more failures, more costs.
The assumption is that the project should move through and that there are no alternatives, or that it can't be happening a little bit later than the anticipated one, once you understand better our financial situation.
Correct. I'd say the assumptions are that we've exhausted the alternatives. We've looked at them, and this is the alternative that staff has identified as the most cost-effective and prudent to move forward with. And from an O&M perspective, it is, I can say this from my previous time at West Basin. The solids handling system is the linchpin in the entire recycled water system. It doesn't just affect ECL. If the solids handling system down perform and it goes down, the entire program shuts down. That's not an exaggeration. And so the risk of doing nothing now, waiting, is that we're exposing ourselves to more potential risk of downtime, which again, it's not just the barrier production or the Chevron refinery system. It is the entire recycled water system, including the satellite facilities and all of our tertiary customers. Any amount of downtime there, we're going to see costs go way up.
Right, and in your opinion, it would be, if this was done a little bit later, since the time frame for going out to bid is in the fall, that would be an irreparable delay?
Well, we can delay as long as we want, but there is
No, in
risk.
terms of just the CM bringing them on board to do this, when they do it now and they do it a little bit later when the plans and specs are actually a little bit further along. I understand that. I think that the argument is, but we'd like to get them on board sooner rather than later. We have a big gap, and there's going to be quite a bit of work that's still going to take place.
Well, I think the key to the constructability assessment is they're not going to spend any time or any money until we direct them. So even if we contract And assuming we don't need their input on that 100% design several months from now, we're not spending any money until they actually get assigned to start that constructability review. So I wouldn't be concerned about contracting today. I would certainly be concerned if we were spending money and they didn't have anything to do yet. But the way this should be structured is that for the constructability assessment, that $30,000, if I heard that right, won't be spent until we tell them we're ready to move forward. And that doesn't have to be on the day of contract execution. That can be 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road. We have flexibility.
And right now, we're looking at probably 4 or 5 months down the road.
I'd have to defer to staff.
If I may, so the gap that you see between the August and November, it isn't necessarily a gap, as in the aim is to go out to bid in August, which means for the contractor. So that means that then we have the RFP out on the streets for 2 months. So September, we aim to bring it before the board in October, do the contractual details in November, and bring the contractor on board in November. So although there's a gap there, that gap is filled with procurement. So delaying the CM, onboarding the CM would delay us putting the RFP out for bid, which would delay that schedule. So there isn't necessarily a gap you can squeeze.
We just received the 90% plans, so
This week, yeah.
I think this week. So we're looking to get the constructability review going as soon as possible to stay on schedule. Just realizing the point that the further we delay this project, the costlier it becomes. And that's 100% given the staff point of view. We have looked at so many different alternatives over the past 3 years. The staff report cites 3 different studies that have been done since 2018. We've looked at, I want to say, close to 9 alternatives for this facility. And as the director mentioned, we presented them to the committee on several occasions. So from a staff point of view, we're fairly confident that the faster we can implement this project, the less amount of cost we would incur on the district from both the capital side of things and, as Eric mentioned, O&M side of things as well.
Okay. So the intent was to move it forward, construction, in that, I guess, September, October time.
To move forward with construction. So to post the RFP in August, to award the contract in October, to bring on board the contractor in November.
September, October time.
That would be the procurement phase, yes.
Okay, so I'm just going back now to kind of one of the big concerns is how we're going to pay for this. And right now, the financial discussion says that there is in the fiscal year 24-25 budget, which has not been approved. $1 million for the project. And we spent already $1.5 million. The total project cost is $19.5 million. I feel a lot more comfortable once we understand how we're going to pay for this. This is a real challenge. And, I don't know if you have an answer today or the general.
We do, Director.
But, we've got several more discussions we're gonna have with the budget. So we're not close to having a finished budget yet. I think it's gonna putting the cart before the horse here and trying to say, well, we've already found where the money is. I'm not quite sure that we have. This is the last budget discussion that we had.
So, Mr. Chairman, it really depends, obviously, on the choices that the board makes in terms of the budget. In the last presentation, you had the opportunity to listen to kind of what that revenue would generate minus our expenses, how much money we would have dedicated to CIP. We plan to next week produce a budget that reduces our expenditures even further. So that would grow the funds that we could dedicate towards CIP. The board would then have options as it relates to this project. And I think there's one other significant project that you've been considering. I feel somewhat confident that depending on the action of the board of directors, if we narrow that gap and through new revenue that we could generate through our agreements with our refineries and through our partnership with the replenishment district, that there are opportunities to fund these projects without utilizing debt. Though debt is an option for the board of directors to consider at our F&A committee. Just yesterday, there was a consideration of extending the commercial paper program at West Basin. And so there are opportunities to fund these projects. But I would just highlight, I think Barkev just touched on it. We're not talking about a delay of 3 to 4 months right now. We're talking about a delay from the original discussions that we've had over the past 2+ years. And I would then take that discussion to a point that our assistant general manager just made, which is that the risk here is that if we have a failure there, we're talking about shutting down the program, at least for a period.
And that has been the case for the last 2.5 years. So it's kind of like the sunk cost argument. Looking backwards, it is what it is. You know, the sky has not fallen, notwithstanding the predictions that it would. So
Well, it's not
We have numerous occasions that have to shut down at least one press,
yes,
which
you-
end up recirculating solids and end up increasing.
Yeah.
Those are all costs that accumulate to the projects.
we've managed to continue to operate, so not like the sky fell. It's kind of the argument that.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would just ask, and I know, a lot of time has been put into this, and I think you're hearing that from staff. But what I would point out is when staff presents the risk to the committee and the board, the fact that that risk doesn't become realized does not mean that risk is not there. At some point, when we talk about the risk never materialized, at some point it will. And then, of course, we're going to have to deal with those repercussions. Again, this is something that we've been talking about for several years now. I'm very satisfied with the work that's been done. We've onboarded an assistant general manager who over the last week and a half has spent a great deal of time with our executive manager of engineering operations and our engineering and operations staff. I've toured the facility with him. I know the risks. He confirmed those risks to me. At this time, I stand by staff's recommendation in relation to this. And I would caveat that by saying that I'm watching every dollar. And the $30,000 that was mentioned as far as task 1 in the scope, yes, we hope to move forward with that quickly. However, I recognize that a budget has not been adopted. And if we need to stop the work, we will stop the work. But we'll have to look at those risks and take on those risks.
Okay, so budget wise, you mentioned that you're gonna come back with a budget that shows some more savings. At the last pass through, we were generating about $7 million. And we have, in addition to this project, as you inferred to your discussion with the general manager, another big project that also needs immediate attention, and that's the data communication system. And that's in the $10 million range also. So we are challenged, and I'm sure that we will come up with a solution. I think all of us have probably ideas on what that would be, and something will come out of those multiple ideas. But it might behoove us, in my opinion, to wait another month till we have a budget and we understand exactly what we are financially.
If that's the choice of the committee and the board,
That's my,
staff will act as directed. I'm very satisfied with the recommendation here. A delay by a month will not change my opinion of the recommendation.
My biggest concern is we will come up with something, but I don't know what that's gonna look like. And I think that we realized at the last budget study session that we do face a big challenge in I for one, think that the board all discussed this. It's not a good idea to continue to kick the can down the road. We need to come up with a plan to address it.
Under no
The other
circumstances.
board members here may have some comments, so I'd like to hear from them. If they have any.
Well, I'm going to have to side with staff. I think, they're on the right track. And I've been around here for some time now. And, I've never seen staff, hunker down in support of something like they are doing now. So I will have to, support them.
I concur.
So, with that, I still advise that you go slow on this, and as you just said, whether you do it now or a month from now, that we resolve it, but
And going slow never seems to be a problem.
no. We always run to then slow down.
Yeah.
See, fine. Okay.
So what's,
So on this one, it sounds like the sentiment is to move it forward. I would move it forward with a caveat that it be delayed at least till after the budget.
that? How far away is the budget?
So we had, yeah, we are required to do that by the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of June. Again, a lot of work, a lot of hours have been dedicated to this. I'm very satisfied with the work that staff has put in. This is something that I personally have been a part of since 2021, since assuming the role of the acting general manager. And I think it would have been prudent at that time, but we've done a lot of work to look under every option and opportunity to avoid this. And having just been at the facility, something needs to be done. Delaying it will not change the action.
Okay,
Okay, so then there's a second part to this. Why don't you go ahead and talk to us about the second part?
Okay, thanks. I think it's packet page 20. Sorry, 23. Yeah, so the second action item on this agenda, on this staff report, we're requesting approval to post invitations for quotation on 4 major elements of the project that require pre-procurement. So as part of the 90% design submittal, Arcadis recommended pre-procurement of the items you see here due to their long lead time. There is a concern that if the items are not procured by the month shown in that second column there, it could cause the project schedule to slip, which would result in West Basin continuing to pay the increased O&M costs for longer than necessary, which are estimated around $300,000 per month, currently paying in addition to O&M. Staff are today requesting approval to post invitations of quotation for the first 4 items here, with an estimated total cost of $1,210,000 and that anticipated award in July. The first of these items is the pre-rental agreement of a temporary dewatering system that will be used during construction while the presses are offline. This system will consist of 2 small centrifuges, each of which are sized to handle the daily sludge production within around 10 hours of continuous running. We're planning to rent 2 of these centrifuges to provide redundancy should one fail, given that the sludge removal is such a critical part of daily plant operations. We intend to enter into a pre-rental agreement with a company in July to ensure that these systems are available, but the actual rental will likely begin around February based on the current construction schedule. The anticipated cost there is for the rental of these centrifuges over a 10-month span during construction. Similarly, the temporary odor control system will be rented over the same period. This system will be used to mitigate the odor of using the centrifuge outside, which is adjacent to the Topgolf facility. So the system will consist of large carbon filters connected by ducting to the vents of the centrifuges. It's hoped that this system, as well as the intended plan to operate the centrifuges overnight and in the early hours of the morning, will mitigate any odor issues experienced by our neighbours. The two sludge conditioning tanks are to be made of welded steel and have a long lead time of 22 weeks. These sludge conditioning tanks are replacing the 2 tanks out of 4 that we have on site that are original from 1995. The installation of these new tanks is the first major construction task and is a key component of the critical path. So they must be procured as soon as possible to prevent schedule that additional $300,000 per month O&M cost. The final items on this pre-procurement list, today's action item, are the MCC electrical breakers. So these 4 devices will be installed in the existing motor control cabinets inside the solids handling control room. They provide electrical protection for the 4 large sludge feed pumps we'll be installing. And these breakers are new additions to this pre-procurement list. Their lead time has increased to 39 weeks since the PDR. So Arcadis, our design team, are continually contacting companies to ensure that we are aware of lead times on items, as procurement is one of the biggest risks on this project. The second half of this table shows components that will be pre-procured later in the year, so probably just prior to the construction contractor being selected. All of these items are bespoke components of the filter presses themselves, so they'll need to be procured by the filter press manufacturer's representative, which is Universal Filtration and Pumping out of Woodstock, Georgia. Fortunately, despite their bespoke nature, the lead time of these items is far shorter than for the items in the table, and so they will be pre-procured later this year. Staff anticipates bringing these procurement awards back before this committee in August or September. So in total, staff anticipates needing to pre-procure $1,620,000 worth of equipment to keep the project timeline as tight as possible, with the action item today requesting approval to post IFQs for approximately $1,210,000 of that anticipated cost. However, it should be noted that the rental costs in the first 2 rows will be expended monthly during the project construction phase, rather than a lump sum on the contract award or when the material is delivered. Staff intends to return with the results of these IFQs in July if approval to post given this month. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the anticipated expenditure on the project each fiscal year. I'm sure you remember last year we replaced the filter cloths on these presses for a total of $170,000, which made up roughly half of last year's total expenditure on the project. This fiscal year, we're on track to spend nearly all, if not all, of the design costs associated with the project. So that $860,000 there corresponds to tasks 1 through 6 of the design contract, and assumes that the 100% design will be finished by the end of this fiscal year. As Barker mentioned, we received the 90% design submittal, the first draft of it last week. So we're anticipating, if we're able to do the constructability reviews, we're anticipating 100% to follow closely on behind that. Since creating this presentation, it now looks like the 100% design might bleed over into the next fiscal year by a couple of weeks, but the bulk of that $860,000 will be spent this fiscal year. Next fiscal year, as we've mentioned, we requested $14.6 million in the proposed CIP budget. This accounts for most of the construction costs, as well as the associated construction management and engineering services during construction from our design engineer. In addition, the bulk of the pre-procurement costs will be realized next fiscal year, mostly due to the procurement and delivery of the conditioning tanks and the rental costs associated with that temporary dewatering system. You may notice here that the pre-procurement total is higher than that on the previous slide. That's because for budgetary reasons, we've added a 20% contingency on the pre-procurement line just to be fiscally conservative. So that's 1.98 million there. The project is due to finish partway through fiscal year 2025-2026, with the construction tailing off and the temporary dewatering system being decommissioned. Therefore, we see the anticipated expenditure drop to just over $4 million. In total, we anticipate this refurbishment project to total approximately $19,570,000 over the 4 fiscal years. We have secured and received $2,640,000 in refinery funding based on our prior agreements. And so the total West Basin funded expenditure comes to $16,930,000 in total. However, we do believe further funding could be secured to further reduce this West Basin expenditure. Next slide, please. This slide shows the total funding we've received from our refinery customers under our current agreements, both in 2016 and in 2021. As you can see, the project budget has significantly increased since those agreements were made, particularly the Chevron boiler feed agreement in 2016. The total project cost, including $810,000 spent prior to us selecting this refurbishment option, comes to $20,380,000. That's almost double the $11.5 million we originally believed the project cost in 2016. As I'm sure you're well aware, updated agreement negotiations are currently ongoing with our refinery customers, and these new agreements will include project budgets such as this one being updated to present values. However, we also anticipate the allocation percentages changing as well, and so it's difficult to assess exactly how much additional funding we may receive. but staff does believe that additional funding will likely be acquired for this project. In terms of how West Basin will be funding our own expenditure on this project, the CIP budget workshop on May 15th covered potential options for the CIP budget as a whole. Next year, depending on the rate options available to the board, there will be between $2 and $6 million available for CIP funding from revenue. We also anticipate receiving approximately $16 million in grant and low interest loan funding from the JMM and Palos Verdes projects. And this project has in the past been proposed as an ideal candidate for West Basin's commercial pipeline due to its quick return on investment. How the remaining $16.9 million project budget is to be funded will ultimately come down to both the ongoing refinery agreements and decisions made by the board in upcoming budget workshops. Slide, please. And so that brings me to the recommendation for you today. That the board authorizes the general manager to, 1, enter into an agreement with AKM Consulting Engineers for construction management services on the solids handling improvements project, CIP 10059, in the amount of $688,168, plus a 10% contingency of $68,817, for a total not to exceed contract amount of $756,985. And 2, post invitations for quotation, IFQs, for components A, procurement of 2 sludge conditioning tanks, B, rental agreement for a temporary dewatering system, C, rental agreement for an odor control system, and D, procurement of electrical breakers for an estimated total of $1,210,000.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add, depending on the action that's taken by the committee and ultimately the board, after listening and participating obviously in the discussion on item 5A1, I would also note on this that to post invitations for quotation, understanding the interest as far as the expenditures and the cost of this as we move through the budget, I can assure this committee and of course the board that no expenses will be incurred on item 5A2 until obviously the budget has been adopted and we get the approval of the board to move forward as far as acquiring these assets.
Any comment?
Yeah, I've never been involved in anything like this before. And it's a lot. And then, and how long have we known that we're gonna have to be in
We've been talking about this for at least 2 years.
for 2 years?
The original condition assessment on this was in 2018. Yeah. So we've been talking about it for 6 years.
The original start date back in 2016-17, the court completed in 2018. And then we did all the alternative 2018 to 2019. Been talking about this for a number of years.
Sounds like we talked about it too long. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, how long have you known about this?
The real discussions have been about 2 years. I mean, it's the background material that Susanna has referenced has been going on for a long time. The other I mentioned, but it's been back and forth to this committee and to the board more than once, more than twice, more than 3 times in the last 2 years. So we have seen this quite a few times in that period of time. I have
So-
some, go ahead.
Can I continue? So in order for us to make a decision today to move the project forward, what would we be voting on today? Or not today, but the next,
At the board meeting, you're gonna be voting if you approve both of these items. And to me, I think we've already dealt with 5.1. If you go ahead and retain a construction management firm.
and
And
that's one of these.
then the second item is the pre-procurement, so that we would then be purchasing some of these items that we will be furnishing to the contractor for the contractor to install.
So who would be on our staff to be the manager of this?
Assume the project manager.
But only the project manager belonging to someone else's.
As the general manager, I should be answering these questions.
I didn't understand the last part of the
Okay.
question.
Who on our team is going to be our person who is responsible for leading this effort?
Let me say that I personally am responsible, our assistant general manager who oversees our engineering operations, our executive manager of engineering operations, and of course, our project manager. We have a very tight team. We are, I hope it's coming across. We are very concerned about our facility and meeting our obligations and the risks of not moving forward with items like this. You know, John has been working on this and presenting to the committee and the board now for a couple of years. And so we're very confident in John's capabilities. And I did want to note, I think Director Alvarez, you mentioned that number 2 would be authorizing the purchase. You know, this is to post the invitations for quotation. I'm letting you know that I will not make any decision on procuring that until, of course, after the board approves the budget. Which again, we've talked about that this project is part of the CIP, so that is part of that discussion.
Okay, Mr. General Manager, that then for my edification, because I guess I'm not very smart. Go back to page 23. I understand that it's an invitation for quotation, but if we're not gonna be doing it, what can it cost?
Sorry, what was the second part of that question?
General managers, you said that all we're doing here is approving invitations for quotation. But I'm looking at slide 23, and it says, yeah, procurement method is invitation for quotation, but we have an anticipated cost, so we're not, what is the anticipated cost for if it's not to purchase something?
To identify the potential cost of me actually procuring the materials. So what you're authorizing at this point, we move forward with the invitations for quotation. We would get that on the street, but we have time. Obviously, we're going to receive those quotes, and I'm letting you know that I won't authorize any expenses.
So what you're saying is we're not approving any procurement.
You're approving, as it says here, the post for invitation for quotation for the 4 items.
We would be coming back to the committee to get,
So then, I'll just read from the recommendation, it says post invitations for quotations for 4 items. This is what I'm asking for me. Procurement of 2 sludge conditioning tanks, rental agreement for a temporary dewatering system, rental agreement for an odor control system, and procurement of electrical breakers for an estimated total of $1.2 million. So we are procuring.
In my opinion, we'd be going out to quote, these are the anticipated costs.
All right, so then we can remove 2D. Since we're not procuring anything.
Dr. Roberts, we would be issuing the invitation for quotes. Once we receive the quotes, we would be coming back to the committee and board to award, to ask for an award.
You always will, but you're asking me, if you're telling me your intent is to procure. If unless I'm reading wrong, and if that's a possibility, I'm just reading what's been presented to me. Procurement of electrical breakers for an estimated total of 1.21 million.
Correct. We invite quotes with the intention to procure, but we can't procure them without board authorization. We'll be
I
coming back.
understand that you will bring that the board will have to approve. And it's the same thing with the construction management contract. But that is what you're moving towards. So if you're not intending to procure, then why would you object to removing item 2D?
We are intending to procure.
You are intending to procure. Thank you.
Yes, I think what the general manager was saying, I don't want words in your mouth, EJ, but we would be going through the budget process ahead of that procurement.
Yeah, I'm letting you know that I'm listening to your concern. Okay. We've delayed and we've talked about this for an extensive period of time. What we're trying to do, and I think this was at your direction, is bring forward these actions, the RFPs and obviously the invitation for quotation to you so that you're aware of what we're doing before they get posted, how we're advertising these opportunities, how we're going through our procurement opportunities. So this is letting you know and take action as to what we're doing. But I'm letting you know, based off of your concerns, that I would not procure these action or these items until there is a budget approved. I'm giving you that assurance.
Just a comment in general about procurement and working with the contractor. I'm a little concerned just from personal experience, and I think experience you're having right now with your Marathon plant, the Carson plant. One thing to go out and get quotes and all that, but there is an inherent risk, it can be done, in procuring something and then having a general contractor being told, this is what you're gonna live with. And even though the general contractor says, I accept responsibility, there's a lot of finger pointing that comes back after the fact. So I would advise that you consider that. I won't be very supportive of procuring on behalf of the general contractor and asking the general contractor to assume that responsibility, but the rest of the board may feel differently. I just think that you've experienced issues with that in the very recent history here and having to deal with that challenge now. So be careful how you do the pre-procurement. It can be done. It is done. It's been done here before, but there are issues with it. And
Chairman, I agree with your sentiment 100%. The one note that I would make that these IFQs, these pre-procurements are a little bit different than the phase 2 expansion project in that the phase 2 expansion project, we assigned the contract to the contractor and gave them that responsibility. For these, the difference here is that these are for the assets. We're not assigning a contract and a service to the contractor. And for even the dewatering system, we'll be handing those over to the contract operator, not the construction contractor. So there's a little bit of difference, but I totally agree with your caution, and we will absolutely take that to heart.
when you give the contractor
Assets.
some equipment and saying install it, and then any hiccups that, hey, I didn't procure the equipment. And so it cost me more than I thought, and then that will be an item for discussion, and, you know, who's gonna pay? So,
We've had success in procurement in the past, and we've had some that have been challenging. We will take your caution to heart.
anyways, it's a point that the board might wanna think about also.
If I,
Go ahead, Rick.
thank you. Again, this project kind of scares me. And I just want to know, give me some feeling that we're not out here with a bunch of rookies. That we have somebody on our team who's been with us on this trip for a while. I think year one, right? So we can blame you. No, I'm not saying it.
Okay.
But I want to feel good that we have a person on our staff that's been with us on this trip for some time. I know that I can trust my man here. There's some people who haven't been here for a few days, but I know them from other places, and I feel good about that. So again, who is that project manager who I guess you could say has it is the project manager,
Director, in this case, it is John Venner, but I assure you that our agency is ready to tackle this project. This is not an easy project.
It is not.
It's not something that we've come to in a week or a short time, as you've heard today. But I assure you, and I will be responsible for this project in its totality. But I feel extremely confident in our staff NHI.
Okay.
And I would add to that, Director Williams, that in the past 5 years that I've been here, we've completed a major complex pump station construction, close to $30 million in cost. Very tough construction project. We've completed the education center project. We've completed several other major construction projects with the experience and the skill set that the staff here provides. And we're very confident with every single one of the engineers that are on staff right now.
Keep talking. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Director Deere, do you have any comments?
No, not at this time.
So to that effect, I'm
Director. Hello?
Director Gray.
Director Gray, you're back?
Hi. Yeah, I've been back for a while. I didn't hear all of the presentation, but I've heard all of the discussion. And some of my questions were answered and probably some of my concerns, but if you would just excuse or if I could just ask you for a quick overview of what the recommendation is for again, if you don't mind, Mr. Chair, if you could indulge me with that for a minute.
Sure.
Hello?
So
Thank you.
yes, Mr. General Manager, would you please?
I'm gonna have John
project
reread
itself.
the, yeah, I'll have
Yeah.
John reread the motion or the recommended motion. And then, of course, we can provide any additional information that you need.
So the recommendation is that the board authorizes the general manager to, one, enter into an agreement with AKM Consulting Engineers for construction management services on the solids handling improvements project, that's CIP project 10059, in the amount of $688,168, plus a 10% contingency of $68,817, for a total not to exceed contract amount of $756,985. And two, to post invitations for quotation, which are IFQs, for the following components. A, procurement of 2 sludge conditioning tanks. B, rental agreement for a temporary dewatering system. C, rental agreement for an odor control system. And D, procurement of electrical breakers for an estimated total of $1,210,000.
All right,
And
well,
for
thank
Director
you.
Grace,
And, yeah, could you
Go
give
ahead,
me
Director
just a
Gray.
brief overview of the project itself? I know I heard the discussion about we've known about it for a couple of years. And I know Harold said that it was complicated, and I heard all the other discussion. But just a brief overview of what we're talking about.
So the solids handling improvements project concerns 2 plate and frame filter presses that form the very last element of the solids handling system at ECL. This solids handling system, if it fails, causes a complete recycled water production shutdown. Over the last 8 or 9 years, we've identified that the O&M costs are increasing. We believe that the O&M costs for this system, as it's gotten older, are costing us around $300,000 in addition every month. And so the aim of this project is to refurbish the system to reduce that O&M expenditure and to extend the useful life of the system.
Okay, well, that's a big project, but it's very important. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you, Chair. I'm done.
Okay. So we dealt, Director Gray, also just for clarification, since this is a 2-part recommendation that staff has brought forward, on part 1, we went ahead and addressed that one kind of independently because they are, even though they're all part of the same project, or 2 different items associated with the project. The first one had to do with the construction retention of the construction manager. And the discussion was that would be moved forward, but the general manager said that nothing would happen until the budget was adopted, since all of these things
Right.
are based on adoption of a budget to finance them. Right now, there is no money for these items.
Right.
so,
Yeah. Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I did want to note that on item 5A1, obviously, we would be entering into that agreement. And then, as I mentioned, depending on the action by the board of directors, and I understand the recommendation, if we have an issue with the budget, though I have been authorized ultimately by the board, if they choose to, to authorize procurement. I will not be making that purchase if we do not have a budget that authorizes that. We will go out for IFQ, but I will not be spending any funds without a budget.
So far, this is just a committee. We haven't authorized.
I'm just letting you know.
Glad that your crystal ball predicts that the board will approve.
I'm not predicting anything. I'll tell you that.
Good.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
with item number 2, I'm concerned about procuring these items and having the district provide them to the contractor. I think that got some issues with it, and sometimes it works out fine, some it doesn't. And then just one last comment, doesn't require any answer is, since we have somebody that's gonna be held responsible, hopefully that budget will then be the budget. Ultimately, I understand that we complete all our projects and so on. It's always interesting to see what a project budget was, what was approved for, and what the final costs are. So the final cost in this case is gonna be just $19,570,000, and it won't be a penny over that. We won't have to deal with any of that, and somebody will be held responsible if it goes a penny over that.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
I'll take full responsibility for that.
Who don't want to go home to?
All right, I think we're done with that item.
Yes, we are.
So. Going back to our agenda. Item 5B, which is the amending agreement with West Laboratories for chemical analytical and reporting services.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yes,
Did the committee act on item 5A?
I understand that they moved the item to the Board of Directors.
Without any committee. Okay. I'm sorry, go to 5B.
Yes, thank you very much. So item 5B begins on packet page 40. And for this presentation, we have Jamie Malpe, Water Quality and Environmental Compliance Supervisor.
General Manager, evening. This is, as EJ mentioned, to amend the agreement W-2-998 with West Laboratories Incorporated for chemistry, analytical, courier, and reporting services. West Basin Municipal Water District retains the services of 2 commercial contract laboratories to perform drinking water and wastewater chemistry analysis. Now, is there feedback? Was there a question? That West Basin Water Quality Laboratory is unable to perform due to accreditation for ELAP certification. These analyses include testing for advanced treated barrier water, tertiary into recycled water, brine effluent, stormwater, groundwater, and sewer for compliance with West Basin's permits. West Basin has 3-year agreements with these laboratories for chemical, analytical, courier, and reporting services for a period of 3 years. W-2-997 with Eurofins Eaton Analytical LLC for a total not to exceed amount of $125,829, and W-2-998 with West Laboratories Incorporated for a total not to exceed amount of $574,414.50. For the first 2 years of these contracts, one of the laboratories was unable to meet the quality assurance, quality control procedures put in place to verify the accuracy of the compliance samples. During this period, West Basin relied on West Laboratories to perform the Title 22 biosolids analyses originally assigned to Eurofins. This has caused the funds allocated to the WEC agreement to be depleted ahead of schedule. The cost of the samples and the budget for chemistry analysis each fiscal year has remained consistent. However, the shift is from the Eurofins contract to the WEC contract. West Basin's agreement with Eurofins and WEC expires on December 31st, 2024. A A request for proposal is planned to go out July 2024. In the meantime, to maintain compliance analysis, the WEC agreement requires the reallocation of funds. Table 1 on page 41 outlines the proposed reallocation of funds between the WEC contract and the Eurofins fund. I will now read the recommendation. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to amend agreement W-2-998 with WEC with an additional contract amount for $140,219.50 by A, releasing the 10% contingency of $52,219.50, and by B, reallocating the contract amount of $88,000 from the agreement W-2-997 with Eurofins. This would bring the new total not to exceed amount agreement for W-2-998 with WEC to $662,414.50. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Jamie. Any questions?
No, I don't.
Director, you? Director Gray, do you have any questions on this one? Okay. Well, I don't have any questions. Just thank you. And
No,
it is
thank
reallocation of the funding from Eurofin to WEC and releasing the retention. So, all right. We move that forward. The next item up is 5C, which is the award of the agreement for professional engineering for the Phase 5 membrane filtration speed up upgrade project.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This item begins on packet page 43. And for this presentation, we have Susanna Lee, our operations supervisor.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, members. As EJ mentioned, please turn to 43 package. Memo. This action item before you is to provide a new HMI and PLC control and ancillary parts for the Phase 5 membrane filtration system. The board is well aware that together with Phase 4 membrane system and Phase 5 membrane system provides pre-treatment to the RO trains that ultimately produce both barrier injections and Chevron boiler feed water. And the board is aware that historically all our MF membrane systems are originally equipment manufactured system. And this includes the control HMI software, and that is also built by the OEM. And this applies to the Phase 5 MF system. After much careful consideration and evaluations by staff, including legal, technical, and cost aspect, it was decided that it is to West Basin's best interest to move to an open platform, control and software. And Phase 5 membrane SCADA system currently is a Avena InTouch version 10.1. With this item, we will be upgrading the software, the SCADA software, and reprogramming of the existing PLC and HMI system that communicates to DCS. The proposed upgrade would allow West Basin to utilize an open platform PLC and HMI software, and staff subsequently solicit SBI to help put together specification for the RFP and for the software development work. And in March of 2024, staff issued our RFP and to post it to district's OpenGov platform. West Basin staff, along with SBI, also had reached out to potential interested system integrators that could do this work. 5 system integrated companies attended the pre-proposal meeting on March 26, 2024, and 3 separate firms attended the optional site walk. West Basin received a total of 3 proposals on April 11, 2024. And the proposals were reviewed by 2 West Basin staff and along with SBI staff. As this is an RFP process, West Basin selected the consultant for the work based on best value. And table one below provides a summary of the average scores given to the different proposals. And you may read about scoring criteria that leads to the result below table one. In summary, enterprise automations received the highest score from the evaluation panel. A more detailed comparison can be found on attachment A. Enterprise automations proposals stood out to the evaluator panel for being the most comprehensive. And EA for short also highlighted that deep understanding of the project scope, the company's certifications to pertinent software, as well as their methods and management tools that they'll be using to mitigate cost overruns and project delays. In contrast to other proposals, they did not effectively articulate their understanding of the project scope. And specifically in comparison to the lowest bidder was not scored as high due to combination of factors, including the proposal did not provide in-depth details to the understanding of the project scope, which can affect the accuracy of the proposed costs. And this can be shown, it was reflected by the different allocations of the cost of the different tasks. Additionally, enterprise automation demonstrated superior technical expertise with the team that they're teaming together, and their team together have the first-hand experience in working with West Basin's DCS system, and this is part of the intricacy that we need to be concerned with, as our DCS system is very finicky. So with that, I will read the recommendation that the board authorized the general manager to enter into agreement with Enterprise Automations for professional engineering services for phase 5 membrane filtration SCADA upgrade project in the amount of $529,807, plus a 15% contingency of $79,482 for a total not to exceed contract amount of $609,361. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Director Williams, do you have any questions?
No, thank you.
How about you, Director Dare?
No, oh, thank you.
Director Gray, do you have questions?
No, thank you. Thank you.
This is a SCADA project. How is this interfacing with the DCS program that we're moving forward with? Where does this fit in there?
The overall DCS project does not touch SCADA level project side of the control. This provides a specific control to the phase 5 system. So the integration is separate from the DCS project.
But isn't there going to be some integration? I understand that part, but how does this fit into that component or that component fit into it?
How does it fit into it?
Yeah, there's got to be some relationship with your.
John can elaborate.
I can answer if you like. So the DCS replacement project, the phase 1 we're doing is the backbone replacement. So the control room stuff, we're not touching the PLCs. So as part of that project, we'll need to integrate all of the PLCs on the plant into the new DCS system. So this will just be one of the PLCs we'll be incorporating. And it will actually make the DCS replacement project easier because it'll be a newer PLC to integrate. So we'll have updated programming code.
So this will be feeding into that. I had thought that when we had moved forward with that, it's just a fairly substantial project, that it was going to address all of that, and kind of stand alone and take care of all of the components. But this is kind of smaller component that's going to be integrated into the larger one, into the DCS, the overall DCS improvement project. I just.
It will be- Yeah, it will be connected. Yeah.
So Dr. Alvarez, the overall DCS has the local controls and the system, the backbone system. And what we decided to do is to phase it out, to tackle the backbone system first. So that's phase 1 that John has been updating on. Backbone system, control room, backbone system, servers, controllers. What Susanna has presented in today is the local control of the PLC. And so the integration what John is, first phase of the project is. Susanna's, what she's presenting today is part of the second phase, but only for the phase 5 system.
So did we retain an owner's agent to help with the DCS?
We just received proposals for it. We're bringing it up at the next annual committee.
So we don't have anybody overseeing that project yet.
We are overseeing it
You
in-house.
guys are, but I've asked for help, so we haven't brought in that help.
We're going to be conducting interviews. We're going to bring a recommendation to the committee next month on the owner's advisor.
I still have questions, but okay. So, is this something you would like to move forward on?
I would move it forward.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if you want, you and I can meet and discuss any questions that you have. We'll be prepared to answer those or provide you with the answers prior to the board.
By the way, in the previous award, the only reason AKM came in better than Bouchier was because of budget. Everything else, Bouchier ranked higher. In this case, budget apparently was not the driver, but you made a wise decision because you're a little bidder to the problem. Thank you. So the next item up, I think we're into these, oh no, we have one more. Yeah. I thought we were done.
What more?
Award agreements for supply and delivery of bulk and mini bulk chemicals.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. This item does begin on packet page 47. And for this presentation, we do have Jeremiah Shea, our operations analyst.
General Manager, good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee and board. I'm happy to present some good news for you today as far as chemicals go. As far as West Basin Board is well aware, we use several chemicals at our ECL water recycling facility as well as the satellite treatment plants. The current agreements for the supply and delivery of these chemicals are scheduled to expire at the end of June 2024. So staff did issue several IFQs, the invitation for quotes, on March 19th this year. We received interest from about 1 to 6 companies for each solicitation, and we received between 1 and 3 bids for each of these IFQs. I would like to direct the committee's attention to table 1 on page 48, which provides a good summary of each of these chemicals that we're purchasing and a comparison of the current unit prices we paid for this fiscal year and the proposed unit prices for the upcoming 24-25 fiscal year. And from a high level, we can highlight that there was, in general, half of the unit prices did decrease for these chemicals, which is a good news story. We have seen several years of price volatility, shorter contract lengths required by these chemical companies, and that was largely attributed to the COVID-19 supply chain impacts from the pandemic. We are happy to say that all of these chemical suppliers have agreed to 1-year contract terms again. So it seems like the chemical markets are stabilizing somewhat and returning to those normal 1-year agreements, which was good. As I mentioned, half the prices went down, unit prices went down. In general, about 4 of these chemicals rose by about 5% in price. And the only significant increase that we saw was in carbon dioxide, which increased about 20% compared to our unit price that we're paying today. And staff did reach out to the vendor to find out why that increase was so large. And the vendor did cite the increased energy and fuel prices for their industry. And we only had 1 manufacturer bid on this project. And they mentioned that they do have occasionally manufacturing outages that require them to obtain carbon dioxide from out of state. And so that is what they're pointing to for some of these price increases. With that, I'm happy to answer any other questions that the board might have about these prices. Yes, we are using all of the same suppliers that we had last year, except for 1 new company, that's North Star Chemical. They did win the low bid for sodium hydroxide delivery to our facilities. So that'll be 1 new supplier we'll be working with this year. We did want to highlight there is somewhat of a confusing price proposal from North Star on the sodium hydroxide. They did propose different prices depending on which facility they deliver to, and that is due to the size of the tanks at our different facilities. So for the JMM site, you'll notice that the price per dry pound is 89 cents, which is significantly higher than the ECL, Chevron, or Torrance facilities. And that price is due to there being several small totes that are in use at JMM for the microfiltration CIP systems. And so when we take delivery to these small totes, they're smaller than the full truckload. And so the supplier will have to charge us that higher rate for those small deliveries. We did contact the supplier with a good news story that Kevin's recent phase 2 project at JMM installed 2 new large 20,000 gallon tanks there for sodium hydroxide. So beginning this year, we can take larger deliveries there. And when we take those larger deliveries, we will be charged the lower price for the ECL facility. So if you see a large increase in the JMM price, it's just for the times that we take small deliveries into those totes, which will be infrequent and small volumes. If there's any other questions about the chemicals, I think that was the one confusing point in the price difference, but I'm happy to read the recommendation otherwise. Okay. Staff recommends that the board authorize the general manager to award agreements with the following chemical suppliers from July 1st, 2024 to June 30th, 2025 for the supply and delivery of the following. A, carbon dioxide by California Tool and Welding Supply to supply, deliver, and maintain carbon dioxide systems at Chevron Nitrification Treatment Plant, Torrance Regional Water Recycling Plant, JMM CR-WRP at 18 cents per pound of carbon dioxide. B, for ferric chloride, Penco Incorporated to supply and deliver ferric chloride to ECL WRF at $1,224 per dry ton. C, for hydrogen peroxide from Brentag Pacific Incorporated to supply and deliver hydrogen peroxide to ECL WRF at $3.85 per gallon. D, sodium bisulfite from Univar Solutions USA LLC to supply and deliver sodium bisulfite at $0.5250 per dry pound to Chevron Nitrification Treatment Plant, Torrance Regional Water Recycling Plant, and JMM CR-WRP. E, sodium hydroxide from North Star Chemical to supply and deliver sodium hydroxide at 37 cents per dry pound to ECL WRF, at 89 cents per dry pound to JMM CR-WRP, and at 41 cents per dry pound to CNTP and TRWRP, with the caveat that I mentioned before for those larger deliveries. F, sodium hypochlorite from JCI Jones Chemical Incorporated to supply and deliver sodium hypochlorite to CNTP, Torrance Regional Water Recycling Facility, JMM CR-WRP, and ECL WRF at $1.71 per gallon. G, for sulfuric acid from Brentag Pacific Incorporated to supply and deliver sulfuric acid at $208 per ton to ECL WRF and JMM CR-WRP, and $288 per ton to Torrance Regional Water Recycling Facility. H, for hydrated lime from Lois North America to supply and deliver hydrated lime at $455.88 per ton to ECL WRF. And finally, for the mini bulk chemicals from Miles Chemical Company for the supply and delivery to ECL WRF of ferric chloride at 59 cents per pound, sodium hydroxide at $0.375 per pound, and sodium hypochlorite at $3.03 per gallon.
Good.
I'm done. Thank you.
So, Director, do you see any questions?
No, I would recommend that this goes on.
Director Gear, you have any questions?
Sounds like a good idea.
Director Gray?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, we're good. So we will move on to the information calendar. If we could, on the information calendar, first address the monthly operations report.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, with the monthly operations report, we do have an entire team here. I do want to introduce, we have our manager of operations, Ms. Uzi Daniel. And I'll have her go through and introduce the members of her team will be presenting. I, of course, did want to note as we've been doing with all of our committees, whenever and wherever possible. We are bringing our interns forward for presentations before the committee and board. And so today is one of those special days for all of us. Hopefully it's as special to our intern who gets to present, but I'll go ahead and hand it over to Uzi.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon.
Page are we on?
This begins on packet page 91.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon. Real quick, we do have a nice presentation and we'll finish with the best part from Karen. She brought some cupcakes to celebrate, so please help yourself, everyone. Just some real highlights. We are working hard on a very interesting leak at JMM that is requiring quite a bit. It's an MF cartridge filter effluent line, the common header. And it's been a really great example of teamwork between our contract operator, many different vendors, engineers to fix that. We will be providing an update to the board as we get that closer to that. Right now, as we've sort of heard a common theme, parts from all over the country are required, and that's what we're expediting right now. Also, on some positive news, we had our annual regulator meeting. We're able to get DDW, the regional board, county health in one room, update them on our projects, talk about all the different things that are going on. We're one of the few agencies that does that and still able to do that, and I think it's great. We talked to them and we did rewrite and resubmit the anti-degradation policy that right now the program that is holding up some of our projects. We addressed that with them and also tried to talk to them about some of our concerns, such as solids. It's getting harder and harder to find places to bring our solids to, some of those requirements. Laboratories, it's getting more challenging to find laboratories that are able to stay certified, especially when we get into recycled water issues. And some of those items related to our permits. I think that was a real great success. We're also we're working on a lot of efforts at the treatment plant. If you have been able to go there recently, really working hard with the team to bring down a lot of those past preventative and corrective maintenance issues. We've cut those in half in the time it takes. The site does look a lot cleaner, really organizing, going through there. So kudos to the entire team. It's been a real great effort there, and for our engineering team for helping us out on that. And finally, with that, I'd like to introduce staff to start on the presentation. If you would like to begin, we'll begin with Susanna on packet page 94.
Into the first water quality graph. As you can see, turbidity has been really unstable. We had a brief meeting with Hyperion staff and understand their challenge since their February storm. They have a bunch of equipment assets they have to repair, and which may have contributed to some of this volatility in the water quality coming into ECM. The average for April turbidity was about 21 NTU. Moving to the next slide.
If I could interrupt you. So this past month, I mean, just looking at that and you just said, water quality is a perpetual issue, you get it, but kind of a little worse. So how much production did we lose because of having to deal with this influence?
We have, I mean, it's a complicated.
Yes, it is.
Complicated.
But we need to, and maybe as we move forward, I think, and I know that we haven't had in-depth discussions, at least not at the committee meeting, but I think we need to have more discussion as to what the real impacts are. We all know that their impact, they do hurt us, they cost us a lot of money, they cost a lot of inconvenience. And it's nice to just start quantifying that a little bit more in these monthly reports.
Certainly do that. At this point, some of the decrease in production is not so much due to the water quality coming in. In the past, we always been able to deal with that with adjustment in chemical dosage and whatnot. So that's where probably the impact would be. Obviously, it would impact our membrane production. At this moment, because we are having challenges with phase 5, membrane haven't been replaced totally. So we are already in a lower production for barrier. We're keeping up with the Chevron demand as you well aware, but the barrier demand is lower, not so much due to the water quality at this moment, but it's due to our membrane performance. So we did have to increase ferric chloride dosing, so that this impact there, so we can certainly start tracking those costs when those events happen.
If I may, Madam Director Alvarez, on packet page 98, there is a table that gives us some sense of how much production loss we're having. The one on packet page 98 is month of April. Next month, we'll show you the May figures to give us something. You'll see all the red there in terms of how much less production from what we had budgeted. That gives us something to measure how low we're going.
Given that, I agree. I know that our production's down and I saw that. You know, you're saying that some of it would have been down anyways because we had membrane issues. But assuming we didn't have any membrane issues, we still didn't have adverse impacts to our production because of having to deal with having to add more chloride to the water. We have other operational issues, etc. So maybe, not maybe, I would like more emphasis on that as we move forward. It's always been an issue. It's a sense of frustration, I think, with some of the board and I think with staff, based on the feedback that I get. And so maybe we can address that a little bit more straightforward instead of just having some numbers here, but what really, and ultimately what I'm looking for is how much is this really cost? That's the bottom line. How much is this really costing? We don't have any control over that influent water, which is the influent from LA. And they do have some control, or at least some responsibility that they should be exercised.
And I would love to add in here that, because I think that's a great point. Sometimes when we had the big upset, it was quite obvious you have to shut down. But I think what directors are mentioning is those sort of more chronic issues that maybe require more backwashing, more chemical, those kind of things. How do we quantify that? And for that, you need a baseline. And what that normal is a little challenging, and we're working on it. But I think that's a great question to ask and to answer. And something that's interesting too, when I talk to colleagues at AWWA, you know, even in drinking water, if you run a surface water treatment plant in wet weather and storms, we have to deal with varying water quality. And I think the original design of this plant had a slightly more rigid window. So the board, you know, is where I think what West Basin's doing a great job with some of these projects is also looking at how can we design a little flexibility? Are there things that we could do into making sure to be able to handle some of those ups and downs a little bit more, because the new normal with drought conditions and concentrated water is a challenge. But I think those are great things that we can start to quantify.
And I appreciate that we can do more, but we can also ask our partners to do more.
Agree.
So anyways, keep going, but when you think about this presentation next month and in the future, see it a little bit more to, I had thought we had, Ruzi, when you just said we don't have a base, I thought we had a base because I thought we had quantified some of these numbers at the time of the upset.
We did. And what I mean by baseline is that baseline of let's say, the ideal influent water quality may change over time too. So for that right now, it's a little more challenging if we want to quantify the cost of that, I think. But we do have what is ideal and normal, but just hasn't been lately.
And the other thing that maybe you can address when you're looking at the operational is when we're getting water, our influent, their effluent, is our influent meeting their MPDS discharge permit for their.
It's.
You won't have that answer today. I think you have a generic answer. We just need to know that.
We do have that answer.
They have different permit limits than what we've been issued. So what they are meeting their permit limits. However, there are times that they are in violation. I believe this was, we had one presentation on it a couple months ago.
It was in the April E&O, which got canceled, so it's in the board package of paper board. You'll see graphs in there that'll show that it is different. We can bring those back.
Some of that is because of that information. So they are meeting their permit requirements, but they can meet their permit requirements and we can get water that doesn't meet their permit requirements, even though they are meeting the permit requirements. Their permit requirements is for discharge. That's for discharge to the NC. So what I want to know, what I think we need to show a little bit more forthrightly or directly, straightforward in these monthly reports is, are we getting the same water that's meeting the discharge?
Would you like to see a graph on comparing their data with our data?
However you want to do it, but really it's pretty straightforward.
Yes.
This is the discharge that we should be receiving, and this is what we're receiving.
And we have that information. Like I said, it was presented back in April. I won't call it at the time, but yes, we can get you that information.
Sorry for the interruption, but keep going.
Thank you for that. Next graph is showing the average in the total climate solids, and they had the upside in March and April timeframe, and it has come down to the average. Our historical average is about between 10 to 20%. Next slide. Here are the highlights for the month of April. Maintenance activities, we did a lot of repair on the phase 4 system. Phase 4 system is also having some challenges. Communication issue related to DCS and SCADA, that's been all like very, so we're having constantly have to keep bringing program back into the system to allow operations of certain units that certainly play into the impact to our production. Phase 4 CIP heater, that's to allow for better operations of that CIP. And then the third photo is showing finally we have some downtime to really clean up the ground thickener and to clean out all the salts that we accumulated during the onset. That was a huge accomplishment there. And then some change out on the phase 5 system. Next. Here's the recycled water production. As you're aware that our production has been down, and we are total 2,489 for the month of April, which is a lot lower than what we budgeted. Obviously, if we go to the next slide, that will go into a little bit detail of where all the major reduction was. For disinfected tertiary as well as Chevron nitrifier, I would have to say that in the month of April, Chevron themselves had a huge major turnaround, and we had known about this because we were planning to do the Chevron nitrified product tank. We have to coincide with their turnaround should have been approved. So that was at least 600 GPM of their irrigation demand for the tertiary irrigation. So some of that reduction was due to the Chevron reduction. And Chevron Nitrify, obviously, yeah, they have to turn around, and they're still slowly ramping up this month. You can see there's nothing on high pressure, low pressure barrier. I mentioned earlier, we're in the midst of replacing membranes, and so we're hoping in the next month or two that we can ramp up the productions there. In terms of Torrance Nitrify, there's communication issue with the Torrance Nitrify. That number is not correct. We realized that almost half the month of the data was not captured because we had loss of communication. This is another example of communication issue without facility. So we have identified that, and we have those numbers, and we will be correcting that production number there.
So the number is high or low?
I believe we had higher. I think what we came up with about 240. That was the acre feet that's supposed to be the PDF. So we'll be mentioning it to PDF staff tomorrow as part of our monthly coordination meeting. And then with JMM Nitrify, I just want and quality. We had the leak toward the end of April last month, and that affected some of that production. And because we're still at reduced production at this moment until the permanent repair is completed, and require them to be at lower scope to not to blow out the temporary fix at this moment. And for your information, lastly, on the Nitrify, we have since September, we adjusted the ratio between boiler fee and Nitrify to per marathon request to 17.5%. So therefore, like, we will not meet this budget for this year because of the adjustment in how they take in water. Because they take a blend of boiler fee and the Nitrify when for the that's that chart. We can move on to the next slide. This is another slide to compare the March production versus last year, March. If you have any more questions, let me know. You can answer that. Next slide.
Thank you, Susanna. Here are the environmental compliance activities for the month of April. We had a few very large annual reports submitted. One being our annual barrier report. Another are brine annual reports for both ECL and Carson, and our annual volumetric report, which encompasses all of our facilities. With the renewal of the ECL brine permit, we had to submit a number of special studies to the regional board. The spill cleanup contingency plan, the technical report on preventative and contingency plan, and initial investigative toxicity reduction evaluation plan. These were all requirements from the regional board, and basically tell the regional board that we are prepared if we have a spill, if we find toxicity in our effluents, and we will take mitigating steps to resolve these problems. A lot of
Those reports, which were new?
I'm sorry?
Those reports, which were new? Net new reports that previously you did not have to submit.
For ECL, we did not have an SPCC, a spill cleanup contingency plan. We had something similar with an SPCC plan for our oil, for the fact that we keep oil, and we did not have a technical report on preventative. While we had different, like, emergency response plans and other items like that, nothing was as comprehensive as what they we're requesting.
So basically, to renew the permit, they added additional reporting requirement. You had to prepare the report. And then we will be on the hook for additional reporting going forward.
Yes, and it's very common. For example, the climate change plan that that is also going to be due next year as a requirement of the brine permit renewals. But yes, a couple of these we did not expect. We did expect the investigative toxicity reduction evaluation. A lot of samples this month, 1,185. One thing I wanted to note is that we currently closed our microbiology request for proposal. So next month we will be bringing that to the board. Had quite a hard time finding laboratories that wanted to analyze our coliform and E. coli samples. So this was a very difficult RFP, but looks like we have at least one bidder.
Change the red change.
What happened when the reason for this was how our water is categorized. Since we're recycled water, we're not drinking water, we're not wastewater. So because our water is not as clean as drinking water, we have to adhere to an 8-hour holding time. So once the person takes the sample, collects the sample, they have only a small amount of time to get it to the lab, and the lab has, and in that total, it's only 8 hours. So trying to find a local lab, trying to find someone that's willing to courier the samples, and as well as staff adhering to the schedule. We do at least 2 samples per day, sometimes up to 11, 7 days a week. So
which lab is gonna, you said you're down to one lab, who's gonna do it?
we might have 2. It just closed at 5 o'clock. I think we have Eurofins and Michelson, but I'll have to double check that.
How does that affect the cost?
That's,
Eurofins is
I'll
not cheap.
I'll have to look at the RFP. So, yeah, but yes,
8 hours is a tight window.
it's very
24
tight.
And this is just for micro.
Micro, yes, total coliform and if it's HPC, heterotrophic plate count. A few E. coli and a few people. Coliform. Not getting easy. No. Next slide, please. I'll turn this over to Frank.
Jamie, good afternoon, directors. So this is our monthly update for potable water customer service. A lot of similar items from last month, but I wanted to highlight the project WP8. This is a project that Metropolitan Water District is wanting to replace the valve that isolates that service. Work was supposed to take place in April. However, that work has been postponed. The city of Lomita conducted a test from the emergency connection from LAUWP. Unfortunately, that test was not successful. It wasn't able to provide such flow. City of Lomita has found to restrict their pipeline due to corrosion. So we'll be meeting with the city, other agencies involved to review what options there are moving forward with the problem. So we'll move this. Next slide. This is the monthly potable water sales for April. Shows the sales for this fiscal year. In April, the potable water base was 5,923 acre feet compared to the budget of 7,402. And this is our monthly recycled water distribution system activities update. Just wanted to highlight that we did have one leak from repair back in Carson that was hit. This happened on April 29th, but that repair was implemented immediately by Infomart. There were no issues with that repair. They were able to exercise 33 valves and implement maintenance on 20 air vacuum valves Here's some photographs of some of the maintenance activities. And this is one of our updates from our recycled water customers that we've been working with. This is for the Nash Street medians and parkways in El Segundo. So the cross connection test, that irrigation system was implemented on April 9th. And the distribution system was actually pressurized yesterday. We had anticipated that the contractor was not going to pressurize that until June. But our engineering team has a more detailed update on that project, but I'm happy to report that that site is now using recycled water. Next slide, please. It shows a map of the Nash the meters associated. So that is the pipeline that just off Hughes Way adjacent to our facility. With that, I can pass it on to Karen Argaman.
So maybe this isn't your, for you to answer, but I'll ask it anyway. So are we done with the connection? at El
Yes.
Segundo?
Yes. It is connected on El Segundo Boulevard.
Thank you.
Salute.
Introduce yourself and take it away.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I am Karen Argumedo, the current operations intern. And as of Monday, I've officially graduated with my Master's of Science in Environmental Hydrology from Cal State LA.
Good for you. It's a great school.
As one of my graduation requirements, it was to submit a project report related to my internship. Thanks to West Basin's Water Quality Compliance Team for allowing me to work on their 2024 Source Control Implementation Plan Report, or also known as the SCIP, which I will briefly present to you today. Next slide, please. As we know, West Basin's goal is to provide 100% recycled water to the West Coast Basin Barrier Project to help reduce the need of potable water in the region. Before attaining the 2006 barrier permit, in 2005, the Division of Drinking Water sent a letter of specific conditions to the LA Regional Water Board as part of the approval process to increase the recycled water injection into the barrier project. One of those conditions was for West Basin to produce a source control implementation plan annually to evaluate the water quality of the ECL plant influence and the barrier product water. So the goal of the SCIP is to aid in the development of prevention strategies to minimize pollutant entry in ECL and recognizing the efficacy of ECL's treatment process. Next slide, please. So the SCIP includes water quality data for the past 5 years, which include 2019 all the way to 2023. The SCIP monitors unregulated chemicals of concern in the barrier product, meaning that these constituents do not have any maximum contaminant levels or MCLs. The constituents that are included in the SCIP show a consistent pattern of protection or concentration increases in the last 5 years, with basin samples for hundreds of different constituents, and the 2024 SCIP report will evaluate 12 constituents. Next slide, please. This table presents the 12 constituents that are monitored in the 2024 SCIP report, along with the annual averages for the plant influence and the barrier products. The green highlight indicates that the constituents in concentration decreased after undergoing advanced treatment. The red highlight indicates that the constituent concentration increased after advanced treatment. Chlorine, chloroform, chromium 6, dichloroacetate, and acetone show concentration increases after advanced treatment by product. 3 of these 12 constituents have notification level. Although chlorate concentrations increases after advanced treatment, it is well below the regulatory limits. Also important to note that the 2021 averages were affected by the Hyperion upside. So grab samples were taken from the product water storage basin containing this product water, which was stagnant for over 4 months. But these samples do not represent the water quality that normally goes into the barrier, and this water was not injected into the barrier product. Next slide, please. So to conclude, all of the barrier product water chemicals of concern that were evaluated in this report from 2019 to 2023 were shows that the processes of West Basin effectively remove these chemicals. West Basin will continue to monitor for these constituents to ensure a safe and reliable water supply. And the West Basin will use the SCIP to reasonably ensure that the recycled water produced at ECL for recharge into the groundwater basin via injection at the barrier is not contaminated with toxic chemicals of industrial origin that are concerned with the Division of Drinking Water and the LA Regional Water Board. And I also want to give a very special thanks to West Basin for allowing me to intern here for almost a year now. And also a very special shout out to the operations department for allowing me to enter their department and really witness all the behind the scenes that go into the operations. I really had no idea what it was to work for a water agency, much less a water agency, but I am surprised to see everything that they do. They do not get enough credit for everything that they do, honestly. It's crazy.
Checks in the mail.
It's crazy, but I'm very grateful for this experience. It really has really instilled that passion that I have for the water industry. So I really want to stay in the water industry. So I really want to thank them for opening their arms and welcoming to the department. And I'm really happy about the position. Thank you.
Everybody, do you have any comments or questions for Karen?
Just good luck and keep your interest in water. Pay dividends.
Director Deal?
Congratulations on your resolution.
Thank you for all. Oh, Director Gray, are you here? I apologize.
It's okay, I'm still here. Thank you, young lady, for your presentation and welcome to West Basin and good luck. Thank you.
So, same sentiment here. I gather then you're done and at least with West Basin. So what do you have a prospective job?
No, I'm still currently applying, so I'm still very open to either the public or private sector in the water industry.
So it's an interesting major, environmental hydrology, but there's a lot of interesting majors these days. What's your undergraduate degree?
Environmental science.
Thank you. Congratulations and good luck. Okay. Back to the,
And I think that it concludes the operations presentation. Thank you very much.
And thank you, Karen.
all right, so now we will go to our monthly engineering report. And I will, before I do that, to the rest of the board, at 6 p.m., we can forego this and just read the material, or we can have a presentation.
Well, let's have a presentation.
Well, thank you, Director. You proceed.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say I have to get off, but thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gray. Good evening.
And Mr. Chairman, I would just want to clarify, there are a couple of things that I think are very much worth us reviewing. If you want us to go through the full report, we're happy to do that. Otherwise, I would definitely recommend, you heard a little brief snippet of it related to the Nash Street lateral. Orlando is here to talk about that. We also have Veronica Govea, who's the project manager on the PV lateral. I think that you've asked questions in the past about that. But we're happy to do the whole presentation, or if you want us to just touch on specific issues.
Leave it up to you. I think that you ought to give some consideration of the time.
Why don't we hand it off to Orlando first to talk a little bit about the Nash Street lateral, and then we'll move over to Veronica Govea.
Thank you, EJ. Good afternoon, Chairman Alvarez and members of the committee. You could please turn to packet page 80. There you can see the start of the presentation. My I think we've heard about this project before, but the Nashville lateral really is a new lateral pipeline in El Segundo, serving a bunch of new customers that'll be hopefully from now and some in the future be connected. Primarily right now, it's the new Chargers headquarters and training facility. Next slide, please. Frank did touch on this a little bit earlier, and he mentioned the cross-connection tests of the parkways and medians being completed. Those meters have been installed as of May 15th, as well as the air vac enclosures. Those were the remaining items. We did pressurize the line yesterday, did our final checks, kind of went like on a segment by segment approach, checking air vacs, meters, everything and so forth. So that was completed. Our final walkthrough went well. And as of today, we signed off on their permit. So we did accept the project as is and approved it. So their goal also yesterday, actually, I'm not sure if anybody has heard, but City Council accepted or authorized the dedication of the Nash Street itself to become public right of way. That was private property from Raytheon. But yesterday's City Council meeting did accept that. So now their goal is to finalize what remaining items there is. So open that street to the public and then issue a temporary certificate of occupancy to the Chargers, and they'll use hopefully the month of June to move into that facility. We do have their site is not as of today connected to recycled water just yet. Next week, our intention is to do a cross connection test for their site specifically on May 28th. If that goes well, then we essentially, all the infrastructure is there. They don't have a recycled water meter yet and are connected. So we basically switch them. They're on potable right now. So we'll switch them over to recycled water after that cross connection test. Next slide, please. Yeah, so here are some photos, some of the meters that were installed. Those are in the parkway. And then on the, that's the left, the middle, you'll see some of the crew working on some of those installations. And then on the very right is those new air vac enclosures. That was, for whatever reason, took a long time to get those enclosures. There was a long lead time for those, but we got them, or the contractor got them last week, and we installed them last week as well, right? So that was ultimately the final item. Next slide, please. So just next steps, and I think this was touched on in the Public Information and Education Committee meeting. The goal is to hopefully have some kind of ceremony for the Chargers and West Basin, essentially commending them for their environmental stewardship of using recycled water to irrigate their practice fields. What I do know is that their intention is to hold the ceremony themselves first for the grand opening of the building. And then we'll follow that with something with West Basin, something smaller. But that would be our goal, our next goal. So I would say the next step would be the cross connection test, connect the site to recycled water, then do some kind of ceremony with that. That's it. And Director Albert, I heard you mention that earlier, but they are connected on El Segundo Boulevard. We did test that line in terms of shutting off the other side to see if flow's coming that way. So everything is squared away. They are connected on both ends. And all the valves are open. So flow.
We have a loop. Thank you.
Have a loop.
Loop.
That's it.
Good afternoon, directors. I will be talking about the Palos Verdes Recycled Water Pipeline Project at the pump station. If you could please follow me to packet page 51. So this is a slide that you have seen in the past, and there hasn't been much change. As you can see, the completion is still reflecting the contractual date that the contractor has under contract. We are in the process of reviewing the condition that it has submitted to justify a time extension. So you can please follow me to the next page, page 62. This is just like some of the topics of discussion that actually do form part of those discussions regarding time extension. There has been several utilities that have not been marked. During the design phase, there was a request for utility plans, which were incorporated to the plans. However, as we are opening the street, this is 2 cities, 3.5 miles of pipe, so we have found several utilities every now and then, not on the location where they should be at, or new facilities that were installed at some point. And during the potholing or like the dig over, some of the utilities were not even marked. So when they're not even marked, when a utility is not known and at least it's marked, it kind of gives us the advanced knowledge that there's something that we haven't seen. But when on top of things, they're not given to us, like we don't have the record drawings, nor we have the red line information on the street by dealer or like the corresponding utilities, it becomes a little more difficult when we open those areas and we find those. So that means that basically it becomes some other utilities it's easy to go around it, some other ones can be more complicated because we need to find room to go around it, especially if it's a portable water line. There's certain compliance that we need to maintain as a consideration. So it can take, sometimes some time to get around the solution to get those results. So as you accumulate, those little delays, it starts accumulating into time. So in the process of reviewing that, we're basically reviewing the contractor's information on what the changes were, as well as the daily reports in order to justify what are the days that are actually, valid in regards to time extension. On the master meter, as you can see, there's another bullet item for this one. So on this one, the contractor was ready to start the excavation on the master meter, being PAHO and Big Alert. And essentially, when the contractor started doing the excavation for where the location was going to be, via Las Vegas and Torrance Utility Road, there we found a 2-inch gas line that had not been marked, nor we have also, plans for. So it's only a 2-inch gas line that is the service to the house that is in the back on the other side of the street. And that from understanding, how those gas lines were connected, basically the main is on via Las Vegas, not on the street next door. So basically those houses are connected to via Las Vegas. So there's an uphill on via Las Vegas to the next door street, essentially, that basically all those service lines are going there. And for whatever reason, again, those marks were not done at the field. So that created a situation in which we have to basically stop the work because we couldn't go around it. We are surrounded by trees, which we cannot remove. And also there's a sewer line. So we have to work with the Southern California Gas Company to try to come up with a plan on, okay, can you guys relocate the line? And also we publish where it stays to see if they could also help, in identifying, the proper channels of communication with Southern California Gas Company. Everybody understands the importance of the project and everybody understands that we are here to do our work as much as we can. And essentially the city was in contact, we've been working with the gas company who are going to be relocating basically that system. Otherwise we are, restrained by trees and a sewer line and that create additional, conflicts with how that meter bowl is designed because it will need to be moved and basically change all of the dynamics of that meter. So the relocation will allow us just like to move a few feet and yet like the relocation be done and move forward without major complication on getting that forward.
So the relocation, I thought we were pretty much done. I had that impression from the fact that I should go to the other committee meeting. So on the relocation, it's a short segment.
Well, for the master meter, yes, it is a short segment, but the line, the 2-inch gas line goes all the way up the hill into the house that is, on the other side of the street. So I'm assuming that the gas company basically abandon the existing line and do a new connection for that gas line. So they can easily move that line away from on our side. The relocation that we need to do by moving the master meter a couple of feet away from the curb is because there is also a fiber optic line that was also not shown on plans, nor it was marked when we did a Big Alert. And in order to move away from this fiber optic, we just need to push our master meter a little bit more into the slope. And the designer has already reviewed the plans, and basically that's a change that can be easily done. And the city is aware of that the change. So basically, we're coordinating with them those changes, so we can get a much faster movement on getting those approvals. One in the relocation of the gas company and two, the revision of those plans. So yeah, it's unfortunate that we didn't know about that, but I think like, yeah, this is definitely something, one of those discoveries that we do at the field that even though it's a 2-inch service becomes a major conflict because we also are restricted by the trees that are around that we cannot remove. And there's also a sewer line. Again, I think like all those houses on that other side of the street are basically connected on via Las Vegas. So we just need to work around those items. So that's one of the items. So right now the contractor, that's on Palos Verdes estates, that's I think like one of the major works that we just need to do. The contractor has already installed the pipeline on Palos Verdes area. The Torrance Utility Road work, which was the directional drilling, was completed last week. Right now, the only thing that they're doing is the connection for the transition from the PVC to the HDPE line. So that was successfully done. So right now it's just like getting his master meter installed and paving and striping place for that and testing on Palos Verdes Drive. Other component that we have had in regards to conflicts or items that have created a time impact into the project is work hours. So during the design phase, we worked with jurisdictional agencies to get plans approved. And during that time, we were given a specific time for us to work. So basically, those are the work hours that we utilize in our bidding packages. And however, when we got the encroachment permit, those hours were changed. So there were like some situations in which those hours were actually shortened. And some of the jurisdictional agencies were, able to let us allow work a little bit longer in certain areas, but not in all of them. So, however, it's an impact when you have an 8-hour shift that gets reduced to 6 hours or 7 hours because you spend a lot of time on just putting like traffic control and then getting it out, because by the time that the time ends, they need to be out of there. So those are things that little by little are accumulating over a long project, essentially like this one. Excuse me. Changes in traffic control, same thing, similar story in which had a traffic control that had been approved to work in a certain area. However, during construction on ANSA, for example, we were asked to do a little bit different work, which basically created additional, work around ANSA Avenue that was not previously anticipated or discussed when we were going through the review of plans. In regards to Vista Montana road closure. So the closure on that was also something that started like in the beginning of February after the rain events. So the street is still closed. However, initially the city had advised us that the sooner that we could get back to Montana Avenue, it was in September. Since then, we continued to work with them, and essentially the city did allow us to come in to Vista Montana, and basically the city is right now currently doing repairs on the slope, and it's going to take them until the end of June to finish those repairs. But in the meantime, the street's still closed, but the city did allow us to work from the intersection of Via Corona to 100 feet away from the slope failure. So the contractor has already installed that pipe. So that's 1,000 feet of pipe that has been installed, which is less now what we have to do after the city finishes their work, so we can come back and do that work where the city right now is working on, essentially. So definitely reduces the amount of pipe that we were expecting to come back in September to build, and potentially, which takes me to the next item. The time impact in regards to that, like right now, the contractor was expecting, as of June 2024 to complete the work, but taking away like the Vista Montana and the master meter, items that they just mentioned right now, basically construction will be completed in July if the city completes the work in June as scheduled. So that way the contractor can come back and do that last portion of Montana Avenue. And in the meantime, we can do the master meter. So we can be doing that work during July and expecting that construction to be completed in August. So right now, that's basically what we are looking at on the schedule. But again, a lot of these changes still need to be formalized on amendment to the contract. And basically all those items need to be negotiated. And because this is the construction work, basically we go through change orders at the time. So all those items, there's a list of several items that we need to go and analyze basically and determine the validation of each item and determine whether it's like a 5 day, a 1 day or no days, and basically negotiate with the contract. So that's why right now we still see March 22nd. Because that's basically reflecting the actual construction date on employees' contract. So I know it's a lot of information. I don't know if there's any questions or.
None for me. Thank you. Good work.
Okay, so moving to the next page. So again, this was a document that was put together at the beginning of May. So basically these days are reflecting that date. Again, the invoices, the contractor, we continue to work with the contractor on getting their invoices up to date. They're still falling behind. So we're like trying to push them as much as we can to make sure that they're, you know, they come out to catch up to, you know, invoicing. So that's something that we continuously work with them. Into the next page, please. So these are just pictures of other areas of the project that we were able to work on. This is like Via Navajo. So this is basically the street that is leading to towards the golf club. The entire alignment of Palos Verdes estates has been installed. It's just basically right now like the top ground, which is the slurry seal and pavement when we need to do and final testing and the master meter. But aside that, the vault location for the meter of the golf club has been installed. And Cal Water is one of our partners. They're at the end of the project. They're going to be owning this portion of the pipeline. So we have been making sure that they are informed of, you know, of the construction as it progresses, especially in this area. Into the next page. Again, these are just some pictures on the Palos Verdes Drive North. So that's basically going around the medians. On this one, we had issues also. The trees, basically we were asked to move around the trees. So we had to offset our pipeline alignment by 10 feet, which was, you know, something that, because, you know, just an assessment to make sure that it could be done. But yeah, it was, you know, easily, you know, done at the field once we move forward. So, so yeah, so again, all these pipelines are already installed. To the next page, please. Again, these are just like some pictures of the contractor when they were basically pulling to get those utilities on the Torrance Utility Road. Maybe for the next meeting, you will see like those pictures of that directional drilling that the contractor did to get again, no trees have been harmed, so we were able to successfully, you know, get through that area. Next page. Pipeline, the PLA status. Again, the studies group continues to share the information in regards to the local at risk and apprentices. So these are the updates from March 2024. So again, because this report is produced a month, you know, ago, basically, you see these dates from previous month or late. But right now they are basically meeting the local and apprentices requirement, and the at risk is at 4.6. The goal is 5%, but right now they have been able to achieve up to 4.6%. Next page. Again, this is just a by the local resident here. Basically, this is just the the work, I guess that we are getting on regards to response to local residents in regards to PLA. Next page. So this is a, so this is a pump, the schedule for the pump station. So we are working with Arnaz Construction. Arnaz, sorry for a minute. It's Arnaz Construction. They were awarded the construction of the pump station. They have been submitting the chapter one submittals. We have been working with the city of Torrance on getting the encroachment permit. The contractor was given an Aristotile award on February 6th. We are hearing from the city that they're going to be releasing the encroachment permit hopefully this week. So that way the contractor will be able to start, doing excavation and all the proper notifications to residents around that area that we're coming to basically to that construction. We've been having meetings with pipeline and contractor for the pump station, because at some point the pipeline, the intake pipe and the discharge pipe do meet, so they needed to have that coordination meeting to make sure that the two systems were gonna basically be matching. And I believe that was the last slide. And the next slide is just basically the budget. And I don't know if there's any questions.
Well, thank you.
So the potential for the realignment and so on, how much are you looking at potential additional?
So there's pluses and there's minuses. So it's, and everything is being assessed. For example, for a Palos Verdes Drive North, it shouldn't be, anything except like for 2 hours essentially, because essentially the beauty of that particular road is that it's dirt. So it's not that it's a major difference from one side to the other one. I think it was just like mostly to go around the trees, and it was done before any construction started, so we were able to coordinate that with the city, so that should be minor. In regards to Eastern Montana, I think like one of the factors that I think that's one of the major ones, like the contractor needs to demobilize and come back, because essentially they will need to basically come back and redo that work. So I don't have a cost yet for that, though we are working with the contractor on getting the cost, especially now that we know that the trench that they're gonna be building in that area is now less than half of what it was originally expected. So that definitely reduces the amount of work that they were gonna be spending there, plus also, any additional, item that would be, factored into that. The relocation of the gas line, again, that is basically something that has to be done through the gas company. It's specialized work. We did go through several conversations with them, for example, in regards to, is a number, like, can we do that work? If you have an approved list, can we utilize them? And the answer was like, no, it has to be done to them for relocation. So that's like a $17,000 basically piece of work that the gas company will have to do. And
we're gonna be in the hook for it?
Well, yes.
They have to relocate because to accommodate our alignment, we can't go over or under them?
So the gas line was already there. It's a service line, and or design plans basically show the same location where the gas line was. Unfortunately, we do not have any information in regards to gas line. And if we move for master meter pole, that means that would require additional design work, because now we need to basically redo the retaining wall. The trees are constraining.
And I apologize for interrupting you, but I don't want to be here all night either. So the gas line was there. We did not know it was there. It was not in the plan.
Right.
When we hit it, it was easier to have them relocate than to just go over or under.
We cannot go over or under. It goes right straight. It's pretty shallow. It's like about 2 feet deep from the finished ground. And our master meter is basically right there. So we did take a close look to all the possibilities. If we move the master meter to one side, oh, we have this constraint. We move to the other one, we have this other constraint. So essentially the gas line couldn't stay in the middle of our entire master meter system. It was just basically going right straight into it. So the most economical, I guess, vias here is like to relocate it, because essentially we will have to do redesign, which and that will imply maybe conversations also about the sewer, because the sewer is also on the other side of the master meter. And there's again trees, and then there's a house also on the south side of the master meter that basically has a balcony that kind of gets a little bit close, so we can't push much the master meter.
Right, thank you. So, good on that.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm gonna use some questions.
One question. Okay, are we getting close to the end?
Mr. Chairman, we do have a number of items within the report. I think it all speaks for itself. I did want to touch on those two very specific items. We also have a board meeting next Wednesday. One of those items, the JMM expansion, we've been discussing due to legal issues in closed session. So I would provide an update there. But with that, unless Barker, if you have anything specific.
Just one clarification at the last board meeting for the CIP budget. You asked a question, Director Alvarez, about the 405, I-405 project auxiliary, about how we're gonna, what is the design of the pipe? And I misspoke. I said that we're putting in 45s and we're abandoning the line. That was an alternative. That's not what we're proceeding with. What we're proceeding is putting an encasement over the existing. And so we were asking Caltrans variance on their design standard to keep the pipe where it is with an encasement within a close proximity of the piles. And that has been approved by Caltrans. So I just wanted to make that correction because I misspoke.
Okay. Is that about it?
That is.
Okay, so I think that brings us pretty much to the end of our agenda. And director's comments, do we have any?
I have no more, thank you.
Director Deere?
No, thank you.
Director Gray? Okay, oh, that's right. You did say she was had to take off. So we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.